Darkest greetings, horror and sci-fi extremists. Jackson here with Horror, Sci-Fi, and Beyond, and it's been a couple months, but we are doing another episode of Extreme Horror. Joining me, as always, on this series is the man, the myth, the legend, Eric White. But also, after our Halloween 2 episode a couple months ago, we have decided to add a third voice to this particular sub-series of Horror, Sci-Fi, and Beyond. We love chatting with Emma James so much that she is now the third chair because of her massive knowledge of extreme horror. So Emma, welcome officially.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you, Emma. We oftentimes Jackson and I agree so much on movies that it's nice to have a third voice in there to sort of be the dissenting opinion on these things.
Which, you know, I mean, maybe she will be, maybe not. But
maybe not. Maybe we all agree on
at
this
least
one.
there's an opportunity for dissent, because Eric and I have virtually identical tastes in movies. So
for the most part.
We were going to last month do an episode on the Todd Solondz film Happiness. Because of scheduling conflicts, we never could get it together. But then a week or two ago, a movie got released and it's still in theaters. And so I called an emergency meeting of the trio because it's definitely our brand here on this show. And so we have to talk about what's the name of the director? I can never pronounce it because French names are.
I looked it up and I was like, I'm gonna remember this. I'm gonna remember how to say it, and I'm don't think I can. I'm gonna butcher it. It's theater.
I'm guessing
French.
It's because it's French. It's probably Qualley Farja.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
If I was gonna guess, but I am bad at any language other than English. Actually, I'm pretty bad at English too.
Well,
but,
you know,
maybe I did hear that once, but I forgot.
Oh gosh. Well, before we talk about that, does anybody have anything they want to talk about? What you've been watching recently? Anything, you know?
Like into Are You Afraid of the Dark from the 90s for some reason? Nice. I just a hankering for it. Some of them hold up pretty well. Some of them are pretty bad. But there was one. It's called Dead Man's Float, and it's kind of like stuck in my mind. Pool monster looking guy, but he's got a skull. I don't know. It burned into my mind. But Are You Afraid of the Dark holds up pretty well.
The only thing I remember about that show, and I used to watch it sometimes when I was a kid, is they had this recurring character that showed up in several stories. The older man with long hair and a beard.
And the magician guy? Sardo.
He was kind of like a magician, mad scientist type, and they always called him a nutbag. That was the word they used to describe him. He's in the episode where it sort of riffs on Nosferatu, because there's an old movie theater and they're showing a kind of version of Nosferatu where the vampire comes out of the movie, and I don't remember much about that show, but
I don't even.
The vibe I'm getting from what I've heard about it is kind of like the Pinko Pate show from I saw the TV show.
Okay. It is very much like that. Which I watched that movie recently too. I saw the TV Glow. I really liked it. I enjoyed it.
I like that one a lot.
I still haven't seen it.
I wasn't into the director's first film, World's Fair, but I really liked I Saw the TV Glow.
So that director just likes to have movies where the title is a complete sentence.
Yes.
You should have done We Bought a Zoo. Or We Need to Talk About Kevin.
There's a sequel.
We need to talk about Emma, what you been watching?
Well, I saw Megalopolis yesterday.
I saw that as well.
Divisive. I've seen on Letterboxd a lot of half stars and a lot of 5 stars. I'm in the 5-star camp personally. I don't think it's a perfect film, and I don't really give a shit. Like, it's better than if it was perfect because it's flawed and weird and interesting in a very Francis Ford Coppola way. And I will say, though, one thing that seems like people are like calling the film unintentionally funny and campy. I don't think that's true at all. I definitely think it's what Coppola was definitely going for humor with some of those scenes, some of the dialogue. Got to be really vague not to spoil anything. I mean, I don't think we should accuse the guy who made Jack and Peggy Sue Got Married of being serious.
That's true. That's true.
Fascinating theatrical experience. One of the wildest films that a major American director has released, probably, or at least on that like $100 million budget level.
Yeah.
Got some really great acting in there. Some very over the top performances. Shia LaBeouf is great. Aubrey Plaza is fucking hilarious. Yeah, it's a good time. And this is also about as far from extreme horror as you can get. But a friend and I have been going through the filmography of Jerry Lewis.
Okay.
Lewis directed 12 features if we don't count The Day the Clown Cried, which of course is unfinished. It's never going to, there's unfortunately nothing to really release. But he directed 12 features, and so far we've done the first 9.
Wow.
They're all at least pretty good. Some of them are masterpieces. The Ladies Man is phenomenal. I've actually watched it like twice in 2 weeks because it's a brilliant comedy, both conceptually and with the humor, because he's got this crazy set. It's like this 4-story enormous house set that's open so you can see everything all the time. And it's just, that's such a massive accomplishment in itself. And watching it, although it actually predates the Tati's playtime, I believe, it made me think of how Jacques Tati uses that nightclub in Playtime, like such a good setting. And also the house in the Blake Edwards film, The Party, with Peter Sellers. Just these comedies that utilize their sets so well in a really elaborate and unique way. I just eat stuff like that up.
I am interested too. You mentioned Megalopolis. I haven't seen it yet. Been wanting to watch it. Have y'all heard about the Ultimate experience that they're doing in?
Yeah,
where like there's like a person that's actually live, like an actor who comes up and pretends to interview Adam Driver, who's on screen. I've heard about that. Is there other stuff like that, or is it just that one scene?
I think it's just that scene.
Just that scene.
That seems like such a weird Ultimate experience. Like,
Coppola does a lot of weird stuff like that, though. Do you ever see Twixt or Betwixt or Say It or whichever version it is?
I have not seen anything he's done since, I don't know, The Rainmaker.
Oh yeah, no, that movie's not great. Like the conceit behind the whole thing was that they were going to live cut it while an audience watched it, so they were going to change the edit.
I heard about
the movie was progressing. It never worked because it was probably not impossible to do something like that. Just the idea of it's kind of cool, even though it didn't work. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with Francis Ford Coppola. I mean, the guy's what, like 83 years old or something like that. And, he's a loon.
The last movie he like self-financed was like, was it One from the Heart? And he like spent him like decades to recover financially.
Yeah, and now he's sunk all this money into this movie, and he's never going to make it back. But he's just going to die, and you know his kids are going to be fine. They've all gone on to their own successes, and so why not just sink what you have left into one last hurrah?
This crazy passion project, whether you like it or not, which obviously I do, but whether you do like it or not, I think it's such a more worthwhile use of that money than just another generic blockbuster, another sequel, another remake.
Right.
Because here's some really insane shit we've never seen before. It's I would say the closest analog to it is probably Southland Tales, but it's
that makes sense.
It's significantly weirder than that.
Yeah. My heart for Southland Tales. It's not a very good movie, but I like that it's trying to do something,
Right.
even though he's not necessarily successful at it.
I've seen it many times.
Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to see the cans cut. I've never seen the cans cut.
I think it's on. I haven't watched it, but I think it's on the Arrow Blu-ray.
One single injection unlocks your DNA and will release another version of yourself. The Substance.
The Substance is a 2024 movie that is about an aging movie star who is now like the host of an aerobics morning show, and she gets canned from that job because, you know, the producer, played by Dennis Quaid, played brilliantly by Dennis Quaid, wants a younger, hotter face. But she finds out from a nurse about this thing called the Substance, which will allow you to share time with a younger version of yourself. 1 week on, 1 week off. And you got to play by the rules or things get real ugly.
Are we doing spoilers, by the way? Are we doing spoilers?
Yeah, full spoilers. We don't, you know, if you haven't seen this movie,
talk about
stop now, go out and watch it, and then come back and listen to the rest of this episode.
So I really like the way that the beginning and the ending of the film mirror each other.
Right.
Elizabeth Sparkle's Hollywood star. And see it like it's shiny and new and bright, and then it's just got food and shit spilled on it, just degraded. And then the ending, that final shot, her face off the hideous creature blob thing, her face just disintegrating on the star.
Right.
Fucking perfect.
And then the street sweeper just comes through and
sweeps it right up. No,
nothing left of Elizabeth Sparkle.
Yeah.
So much of this movie is kind of dialogueless too. Like we have just enough to kind of get us up and going, but a lot of it just kind of lives with our characters. We don't have like Demi Moore is like by herself. Like she doesn't really talk to herself at all. Like
no.
like an all worse movie where like I gotta get back out there and or anything like that. Just we kind of are in her headspace and living there for the entire movie. And Sue's too at that point, you know. I will say this one thing before we get too far into it. The opening, even before the star, is that
it's the egg.
Yeah,
the egg, that visual.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
Great way to kind of sum up.
You see a needle go into the egg yolk, and then the egg yolk just sort of slowly turns into two egg yolks.
It's such a great way to foreshadow what the Substance is.
Yeah,
right.
Yet, but like it's unless we've seen the trailer, but it's a great way to imply what it's going to do. I like that setup. Demi Moore is playing a woman who's considered undesirable by her producers because she's just turned 50. I will say Demi Moore was 60 when she filmed that, and insanely hot, just gorgeous.
It's pretty crazy.
Does not need this substance whatsoever.
No,
but it's this warped Hollywood perception of women being worthless once they hit a certain age.
Right.
That's what obviously fuels the whole concept behind the film.
Sure.
Very cerebral, kind of social commentary, body horror.
You say cerebral. I don't actually think it's that cerebral. I think it's all pretty on the nose.
It's pretty blunt.
I don't care because it's so damn entertaining to watch. We should note this movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes long. Yeah. It doesn't feel like it at all. Like I will say there was one moment where, because I was drinking a large soda, I had to step out and go to the bathroom. We can talk about that scene later because I think I caught what the scene was about, but I might have missed something. We'll get to that.
I guess by cerebral, I meant like a little more art house, a little more
for sure
than the typical mainstream horror. Although the movie actually did very well at the box office for a niche stream horror release, kind of following the Long Legs pattern. That was such a big hit earlier this year.
Especially for Mubi, which doesn't really release a movie like this into that many theaters. And so to like land in the top like 10 with like a $3 million haul on its first weekend for a movie that's 220 minutes, it's a weird body horror movie. Like Yeah, I
Have
say
they
it's a win.
distributed movies before? I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
feel like I don't feel like I've ever seen their logo at the beginning of a
Pretty
movie.
niche art house stuff. Like they did
Mhm.
Park Chan-wook's last film, Decision to Leave.
Mhm.
They
Oh, I
did.
didn't see that.
They did
Oh, it's
Passages, which was very good. With
Okay.
Iris X, right? Yeah.
that sax film.
Mm-hmm.
Franz Rogowski, Ben Whishaw, Adele Exarchopoulos, I think it was. Yeah, that was great.
Okay.
But this is their biggest release, and they actually stumbled into it. They were very lucky to get a movie that had been passed up by the studio that funded it. So Universal made this movie and decided it was unreleasable for them. It was too weird, not their thing. So it was dumped, and Mubi was right there to pick it up.
Yeah.
So
Do you know what the budget was for it?
I would guess fairly substantial. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily massive, but I would think it.
Yeah.
It looks like it cost at least like 20 million, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm checking.
I mean, I imagine it's probably 10 plus, but I don't know.
The
Speculation.
effect sequences alone
Yeah.
would justify that. Like all the makeup, because it's not like an actor heavy movie. You've got Demi Moore, you've got Margaret Qualley, and then the only other actor really credited like with his own card is Dennis Quaid, who only shows up for a scene here and there, playing a delightfully over the top, scummy Hollywood producer.
So Wikipedia says 17.5. So
okay.
We're all close.
Yeah, especially like this, which is sort of very niche, just in like its subgenre, because it is sort of like it's just body horror. I mean, it's blatant body horror, but then it's also a critique of, I guess, like Hollywood norms. I don't. It would be a hard sell probably, but to get like $17 million for it, pretty good. But I guess that sort of relies on the strength of the director, which I will not try to say her name again, but the previous film, Revenge, which was a sort of like which was sort of like a film festival darling for a while, and then kind of found its way onto I think Shudder. I think it became a Shudder exclusive or something at one point. But
was that one like was that Neon that did that one? I can't remember.
Yes,
I think so.
I believe
okay.
So. It was kind of before they had really. It was pre-Parasite, so they hadn't like really.
Huge... they went to the next level with that.
Mm-hmm.
I used to work for their sister company, which I've talked about many times on this show. I used to work at Alamo Draft House.
Oh, nice.
And Neon was the sort of rebranded Draft House Films. And I always wanted to figure out how to work for Neon. And then COVID hit and it shut down the whole business. And I had to leave the company and leave the state of Texas. And I never got to work for Neon.
Not yet, at least. There's still time.
Not too late.
Yeah.
But if you do work for them, please ask me why they fucked up the release of Robot Dreams. They had a movie and they put it.
Seen that.
They put it in such limited release. It's a terrific animated film. No dialogue.
Yeah.
Loved it, but they totally like in my town. It only played for 2 days.
Never even played here. Never even played in Arkansas at all.
Yeah.
They botched the release bad. I think it would have had a lot of wide appeal. It's pretty family friendly.
Yeah, and it got nominated for an Oscar. It could have.
Yeah, they really didn't. Either they didn't know what they had, or they prioritized other things at its expense. But yeah, great movie. Not extreme horror, that's for sure. But
this really is like ramble on.
But I will say, anybody who had seen Revenge, Qualley's previous film, would kind of know what they were getting into with the substance,
right?
Just in the sense of like the playing with genre norms and sort of this very bold comedy that kind of runs through the whole thing, which plays a lot into like satire that happens in the substance.
There's a lot of absurd comedy. There's a lot of sexuality and nudity. And the violence is absolutely unhinged. So
Revenge was extremely violent and gory too.
Yeah.
But I think she definitely topped herself in that department with the substance. It's
Oh, for sure.
It's gotta be one of the
Yeah.
glorious movies ever. I think the only reason it probably didn't get rated NC-17 is because most of the gore is technically not violence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically body horror shit for the most
Well,
part. Although that one scene where Sue kills Elizabeth is just fucking brutal. That was hard to watch.
that's probably the most, in my opinion, the most violent scene in the movie, even though it does end in a geyser of blood at the end of it. Like spraying literally and figuratively the audience at that point of the movie.
Well, that's the other thing is that scene, all the blood is coming from off screen and just splashing on people. You're just seeing people get splashed with blood and their reaction to it, and everybody's screaming and everything. But it's also it's so over the top that it's silly. So that's another reason it probably didn't get the NC-17.
Yeah, it definitely reminded me of that scene of the prom scene in Carrie, with just blood everywhere and chaos.
Yep. It reminds me of that prom scene mixed with like that Peter Jackson movie, Dead Alive, before he made
Dead
Heavenly
Alive.
Creatures.
I love the early
where he's got the lawnmower and just takes it through
Mhm.
the house with all the alien zombie things or whatever they are.
Was that the one? Or I think it was Bad Taste. That's the one where like they're sitting around like drinking the bowls of puke. And
Yep.
That's bad taste.
That's bad taste. That's
was-
bad taste.
But
that was
yeah,
disgusting. Yeah, I like Meet the Feebles is great.
Meet the Feebles is whacked out.
I could not get through Meet the Feebles. That one, I just couldn't. I just couldn't do it.
It's exactly what that really shitty Melissa McCarthy movie, The Happy Time Murders, should have been.
Right.
Open. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about Demi Moore. Let's just unpack this a little bit, because she is not somebody who has headlined a movie in over 20 years.
I mean, she was like top draw there for a while, like in the 90s. Like
she was
after
in
Ghost, it was like she was like the go-to.
She was huge. She was on magazine covers. She was, married to Bruce Willis, and they had a daughter who's now an actress. But she was like the it girl woman for like a decade. And then her last big movie, I feel like, was Charlie's Angels 2, where she played the villain. She wasn't even the star of that movie. But I cannot think of anything like a big movie she's been in since then. And I'm not saying this is a big movie. This is like a niche art house body horror movie. But she's the lead, and man, is she good in it.
I've been reading, the other day I was reading an article, I think it was on Variety, about the potential Oscar race for this year. And they mentioned her as a possibility for Best Actress.
That's a long shot, but
I can't see the Academy. Even though they've gotten a little cooler in recent years, I can't see the Academy.
I can't see them embracing this movie, even though her performance is definitely deserving of such an honor.
I would be surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if it'll pick up a makeup nomination or maybe even a screenplay, because it did win screenplay at Cannes for this movie. So I don't.
Yeah, but
maybe.
the Oscars are boring. Like,
you're right. They would never.
This is the organization that the year Black Klansman came out, they gave the award to Green Book.
Yeah, I guess obviously she did make some more films after it, because like 1995 or 6. But I know Striptease was a pretty big career damager for Demi Moore.
It was, and you know what? That movie's not that bad.
I haven't seen it. And her Scarlet Letter flopped really badly too.
That was a big
the one
flop, because it was supposed to be this prestigious Oscar-y thing, and they just turned it into a tawdry, romance, not bodice ripper type movie.
Yeah.
Even though it's based on this sort of literary classic about morality and judgment and everything.
I actually did read that book in school. It was pretty great.
I think everybody had to read that in school, at least of a certain age. Anybody over 30 had to read that in school.
Right.
I skimmed it. I couldn't get into it because I don't like the style of writing. But anyway.
But yeah, really, I mean, after Scarlet Letter, she kind of did for a long while, and then she came back for. You're right. Like she came back as like in Charlie's Angels, the sequel. But then after that, things here and there, but she doesn't really.
That was a big thing too, because at that point she was 40, and everybody was like, "She's 40 and she's still hot." Oh man, how could a woman be hot at the age of 40? And now it's 20 years later, and it's like, oh, she's 60 and she's still hot.
Yeah, she was married to Ashton Kutcher for a while.
That was a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I forgot all about that. Yeah.
I totally forgot about that. I don't ever think about Ashton Kutcher in my life.
Try not to, at least.
Yeah,
I don't know. The Butterfly Effect, that's pretty decent flick.
Butterfly Effect was dope. Yeah.
Did you ever see the sequel where he or not the sequel? It's the unreleased alternate ending where he goes back in time and strangles himself in the wound.
I did see that. That's super weird. Okay. So the next build in this movie, though, is Margaret Qualley, who is, she's Hollywood
young
legacy.
up-and-comer. Yeah.
Her mom is Andie MacDowell. And she's been in more than you think she has. Because the first thing I remember seeing her in is The Leftovers, which premiered in what, like 2017 or something like that?
Maybe earlier, maybe 2015. I can't remember.
Maybe I can't remember exactly when but she had a pretty prominent role in that. And then she sort of floated around. She was in, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Just, a few scenes, but very memorable.
Yeah, she's the girl with her feet up on the dashboard.
She gets the classic Tarantino foot shot in that movie. And asks if she can go down on Brad Pitt while he's driving. Did either of y'all see this movie she did a few years ago called Sanctuary?
Yes, I love Sanctuary.
Okay. Eric, have you seen Sanctuary?
I've seen it. What was Sanctuary?
So it's a two-hander. It's a two-hander. It takes place in a hotel room. She plays a dominatrix.
Yes.
Okay. Cool movie. And she is just swinging for the fences in that movie. And I always knew that she had presence, but I love that now she's getting to like star in her own stuff. There was that movie. There's this movie. Yeah. She's great in this. Not the emotional core of the movie. That's Demi Moore, but she's basically the villain of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Dennis Quaid is the villain of the movie, but
everyone except for Demi Moore is the villain of this movie, including herself. Right.
I would also give Margaret Qualley a shout out for having been in the last two Yorgos Lanthimos films.
She was showing up in those.
She got a bigger in Kinds of Kindness.
Which the third story,
Only one of my
favorites. I mean, she's in all three stories of that.
Yeah.
But the third story, she has the most prominent part, yes.
I think
she plays two characters.
Favorite, actually. The third story was my favorite.
I laughed a lot. I had a bigger laugh at the second one, especially the end credits where we actually see all the dogs living their best lives, but it was a good time.
Yeah, that's one of my top 5 of the year for sure. Gonna stay there. I just love those. But she was also in Ethan Cohen's latest film, Drive Away Dolls.
It's true.
I still need to watch that.
I wanted to like it so bad.
Same.
I just didn't.
It just didn't quite connect with me for some reason.
Yeah. Like you would expect from the Coens. It doesn't have that wit. It's silly. Nothing
feels very 90s. Feels very 90s.
Sure,
I think this like division between the Coen brothers is probably temporary, and they're gonna experience a little bit more failure before they come back together and give us another masterpiece.
We'll see. We'll see if they can mend fences. Who knows? Maybe
I think they can. Blood is thicker than water.
Are they fighting, or are they just like creatively?
I think they just got tired of being tied to each other and wanted to branch out and do their own thing, but it's not working out. They need each other to succeed.
Yeah, no, I was very much like the prime target audience for that film. I was very excited for it.
Right.
And I did not enjoy it. Margaret Qualley, I wouldn't really blame her. I feel like it had to be the direction, but she's got this accent in that movie that anybody who's actually Anybody who's actually
Yeah.
from the South would know that no
Mhm.
one talks like that.
Yeah, it's so
Which
thick and
she
so
should
put on.
know. Her mother is from the South. Like, she might have grown up in California, but Andy McDowell is from North
Mhm.
Carolina and sounds like it.
Mhm. I will say that I love how the movie sets up its rules and then sticks to them, which a lot of like horror movies will fudge on them a bit. They'll be like,
Right.
it's like dream logic. Now this one like sets up its rules and then plays them out all the way through, including
Yes.
its like wild ending where it's just like it set it up from the beginning that
One-time use.
one time use. And so I do love that it had clear defined rules that it just stuck to, and it makes drama so
Written
much
in
more satisfying
big
when it
bold
does.
letters on
Yeah.
like big pieces of paper. It's like,
Mhm.
this is what you do. You do not deviate. And I remember when I saw it, the first time the rules get broken, like it's only a couple hours or whatever, because
Mhm.
it's the 7th day and she wants to hook up with this guy, and she's just like, it's fine. And then, you know, I was like, in the theater, I was like, because I was alone in the theater,
Oh
nobody else
no.
in there.
Oh,
Yeah, so I
Wow.
got to say things out loud to the screen, and I was like, oh, this is gonna go really bad now. This is the beginning of this
This is the
movie.
turn. It's all going downhill from here.
The train is going off the tracks. And the next morning, it's the smallest thing, but
Mhm.
Demi Moore wakes up with like, and her finger is all like old and decrepit and gray.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh fuck, this movie's gonna get so weird from here on
Mhm.
out.
I feel like the substance guy who we never see, he's just the voice on the phone.
The voice on the phone,
Mhm.
such a great choice.
I don't see him as a villain because the substance does exactly what he says. There are no
Right.
tricks, there's nothing she wasn't warned about. It's
Right.
just human nature to try to break those rules, and that's
Mhm.
the power struggle between Elizabeth and Sue. That's the
Mhm.
central conflict of the film.
It's all we are our own worst enemies. What I think the movie kind of gets down to in some ways. We always want what we can't possibly have, and then in order to get it, we'll do almost anything, including break the rules.
Well,
It never works out well for us.
there's that repeated line, remember, you are one.
You are
Mhm.
one.
They both
Yeah.
struggle with that because they both want control of the
Mhm.
body. And even what I guess I didn't fully understand how Sue has her own like personality and mind, because I would think
Mhm.
switching bodies back and forth, I would think they would be aware of what each other are doing, but
That was one thing I had a question about in the middle of the movie is
It
that
is a little
can
weird,
Sue,
yeah.
yeah, and they don't really go too deep into it, which I think is probably for the best. But can Sue remember what Elizabeth remembers from the previous 7 days? You know what I mean? I don't think she can.
so,
I
Yeah.
don't think so, because every time Elizabeth or Sue,
Mhm.
every time they wake up and see what the other one has caused,
Mhm.
like, Sue wakes up and Elizabeth has just been like
Eating
eating all
trash.
this like junk food and everything.
chicken wings
So,
everywhere and shit.
Mhm.
yeah, so I don't think they know what each other are doing. And I wonder about the personality of it all. Like,
Mm.
is this what Elizabeth's personality was when she was younger?
Mm.
Is this
Mhm.
maybe why she sort of fell off the map as an actress and, had to take over as like an exercise instructor on, local TV?
Right. Right. Are we getting a backstory and a present day story all at the same time, sort of thing,
Right.
without
I
doing
don't
without
know.
doing a back? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's an interesting point. I didn't even think about that.
One thing I think is interesting is that obviously she looks similar enough, but obviously Margaret Qualley does not look exactly like a young Demi
Mhm.
Moore, and I
Yeah.
think that's like it's because this they tell us this is supposed to be the idealized version of your young self. It's like your perfect
Mm.
self. So it's not necessarily how Elizabeth was when she was younger, but I'm sure there are probably some overlaps in the behavior and thinking,
Mhm.
Mhm.
especially if Elizabeth is image obsessed enough to take the substance in the first place.
But I don't know. I feel like Elizabeth didn't become this obsessed until she got fired from her job.
True.
She seems pretty contented at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
It's only when Dennis Quaid shows up and, you know,
Just disgustingly eating that shrimp. Like the most, maybe the grossest scene in the movie. Yeah.
which one of the funniest things about going to see this movie is that 2 theaters down, they were showing the movie Reagan, starring Dennis Quaid.
Do you think anybody
Like,
did the double feature?
I cannot imagine, you know,
An elderly couple, an elderly boomer couple wanders into the substance thinking they're seeing Reagan.
You think anybody did the double feature?
I doubt it. I know my parents went to go see Reagan. I went to go see The Substance, not the same day, but
It's not quite Barbenheimer.
it's really not. Actually, you know what? That is kind of Barbenheimer, because this is a movie about like sort of femininity and the male gaze and patriarchy, and Reagan's a movie about power.
A historical figure from the past. Yeah.
Right.
President.
What would the order be? You watched them in.
This
You
is
watched Reagan first.
Man's man. Yeah.
It is the official position of Extreme Horror that The Substance and Reagan are this year's Barbenheimer.
I remember
Guaranteed to ignite the box office.
last year. Yeah, I think it was around last October. Saw 10 and Paw Patrol came out the same weekend.
Yeah, Saw Patrol. Yeah.
I only saw 10. I can't say I'm really.
I haven't seen Paw Patrol.
I need to see Saw 10. I still have not seen it.
Saw 10's pretty good.
It's the only Saw movie I haven't seen.
If you like the Saw franchise, it's like top 3. It's the best.
It's the only Saw movie I haven't seen in theaters since the 3rd one. I have been a loyal fan of this franchise, and I did not get out to see Saw 10, and it was gone.
Hey, watch it in October.
I don't really know how else to describe her. The crone version of Demi Moore, like after the Sue abuses all of it. I got real like the witches vibe from her, like those sort of like bird like, you know what I'm talking about?
Right.
Which I really loved. All of the practical effects in this movie always looked wonderful.
Right.
So all the stuff with like the birthing scene, which is one of maybe the grossest birthing scenes.
Birthing scene is absolutely like top tier body horror. It is astounding to watch. And then the payoff is you get to see Margaret Qualley pose naked in the mirror. And then it's got that beautiful shot where it's like it zooms in on her eye and you see like all the little like, substance flecks in her eye, and then it zooms out and she's like flexing in front of the mirror, and it's also gorgeously shot. I referenced sort of the male gaze earlier. And this movie plays into that, but in such a satirical way that it's kind of wonderful, because this movie's directed by a woman. So she's like, okay, guys, I'm going to give you what you want for the first half of this movie. You're going to get like Demi Moore, who's 60 years old, but still smoking hot, and she's going to be fully naked. And then you're going to get Margaret Qualley, who is a young, beautiful starlet. She's naked all the time. And then this movie really drops the hammer. It's like, now you're going to be grossed out for the next hour or whatever. It's great. It's great. It's so subversive and cool.
I feel like there's so much more to unpack from this movie that I need another rewatch. It's just like the whole thing with like those monuments to herself, like the big photo of her in there, and then the billboard outside. And it changes
the photo and the billboard. Just
which
recurring motifs and
well,
but they're kind of fighting. You know, Demi Moore has the big photo of herself, and then right outside the big open window is the billboard. So they're always kind of at odds with each other, and
they're always present. Both of them are,
and they each want to destroy each other in a certain way, even though destroying each other is exactly what leads to the downfall of both of them.
And you end up with the third thing, which I don't know what to call, like the Sue,
The
Elizabeth,
Monstro Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, yeah. Which was perfect, wonderful. I loved all that stuff with her getting ready in the mirror and putting on the earrings, all that sort of like
she doesn't
getting
have
ready
an ear on one side, and so she just has to
just like
stick it wherever she can.
I love that she goes into the studio as this crazy creature, and she's got Elizabeth's face stapled to her, and the guy just lets her right in, no questions. The bouncer this way, because
that says a lot about the type of movie that we're watching.
Paying attention.
Yeah, about midway through, I was like, how are they going to top themselves by the end? Because it felt like it was building towards it. I was just like, how is this even going to like work? But man, yeah, that boob coming out of her face in the last like little bit.
Yeah, and then it just like sort of squeaks out of her face and falls to the floor and splats.
I love
the grossest.
The hallway from The Shining.
Oh yeah, all those visual motifs.
Yeah,
the bathroom that Quaid goes into in the beginning and talks on the phone and like gets like uncomfortably close to the lens. Like all that stuff was very like Shining Kubrickian, I guess.
Like I said earlier, I drank a big soda during the first half of this movie and had to go to the bathroom at one point. I was gone for probably a minute tops. It was in the scene where Elizabeth goes into the diner and there's like the old man sitting there. I missed part of that scene. So is that implied that it's the nurse that gave her the substance?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I figured, because when I walked back into the theater, the line I heard him say is like, is she starting to eat away at you yet? Or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I figured that's who that was. It was the Matrix version of the nurse that turned her on to this substance. So
they share a birthmark, I think, right? Because he has a like the nurse has a birthmark and the old man has a birthmark.
Or is it experiment from the substance?
Oh, maybe so.
That's what I thought.
I like I said, I didn't catch enough of the scene to know this. I just wanted to confirm that my assertion was correct.
Your context clues paid off. Yes.
Yeah. I was surprised we never saw that guy again after the diner scene.
Yeah. I thought they were going to pay him off in some way. You get a little bit of everything that I think I would ever want in a movie like this.
It's funny. It's sad. It's sexy.
Gross.
It's gross. It's all these things. Yeah.
And it makes nearly 2.5 hours feel like 90 minutes.
It flies by. Yeah.
It's definitely this year's Titan in that it's a French body horror film from this kind of new French extremity female auteur, and takes you on such a wild fucking ride. And I think that'd be a good double feature if you can handle that much body horror.
See, I didn't like Titan that much. I loved Raw. Like Raw is 10 out of 10.
Titan more than Raw.
I couldn't get into Titan.
I watched Titan when I had COVID, and the body horror and like having like COVID like pains, I couldn't do it. I had to turn it off like midway through. I was like, oh no. I went back and finished it. I like Titan. I think I like Raw. I think I'm almost in the same boat as Jackson. I think I like Raw better, but it's still good. It's still worth a watch.
Yeah, I wouldn't discourage anyone. I would discourage some people from watching it because they couldn't handle it.
Mad at me. I saw it in the theater, and my mom is still mad at me.
I would say that anybody who loves the movie Reagan should check out The Substance.
Yes, for sure. It's Dennis Quaid. Who could go wrong?
The guy
he's your icon. Yeah.
If you like Disney's The Rookie, check out The Substance.
Apparently, the role that Dennis Quaid plays in this was originally supposed to be Ray Liotta.
Yeah.
But then he died.
Before he passed away. Yeah.
For some reason, they were like, "Oh, let's get Dennis Quaid, the guy that only makes like conservative Christian movies now."
Right.
Quaid did so well,
and he accepted the offer. He did it.
Quaid did such a good job. I can't imagine Ray Liotta.
Yeah.
It would have been a different vibe. It wouldn't have been as like broadly comedic. I think. I don't know. It would have been darker.
It would have been
hard
darker.
to imagine.
Yeah, Ray Liotta, despite his beautiful blue eyes, had a darkness that Dennis Quaid does not have. Like, we're gonna do favorite part, least favorite part. So Emma, I'm gonna come to you first.
My favorite part would have to be the climactic New Year's Eve party.
We didn't even really talk about this that much.
This insane
but go ahead.
fest, freak out, blood spraying everywhere, cameras shaking, people just running in terror, covered in blood. It's very like, it's like a death metal scene in a movie. You even got the very loud, chaotic music. It's just an awesome moment. I was watching this, I was like, fuck yeah, this is what I love about cinema. Just such a great sequence in a movie that has many of them.
Okay, what's your least favorite part?
Well, as we brought up earlier, I don't really think that Elizabeth and Sue not really knowing what each other are doing makes that much sense narratively. If they are one, like is repeatedly said, they should have some idea what each other are doing and not be shocked when they wake up and the apartment's a mess. It's a very minor quibble, but it could have used some clarification. I would just like to hear more about that from the director.
Eric, what's your favorite part?
I was going to say the climax, but I'll say a different part. I really love the insanity that leads up to Demi Moore or Elizabeth Sparkle's death. All of that stuff with her coming back out, and she's like this old bird woman with like a humped back and everything, leading to their like just bonkers fight where like Sue.
It's a great action scene. And of course, this director made Revenge, which is full of great action. We call it a horror movie, but it's more of like a revenge action movie. Yeah.
Right. All that stuff is just great. And it's some of like the most visually arresting stuff. They used it a lot in the trailers, like the body getting flung across the room and everything.
I didn't see these trailers. I only saw like short spots for it. And I don't feel like I even knew what the movie was going in.
I think it's really the best way to go into this movie too,
right?
Because I watched the trailer after the fact, and I was like, they give away so much. Like it's like the first 30 minutes of the movie.
Okay, least favorite part.
If I was gonna nitpick, I mean, she built that like secret room like so easily in like 7 days. I don't know. Maybe
pretty weird.
Yeah, but it's a minor quibble. If you can suspend your disbelief that there's a substance that you can plug into yourself and make another version of yourself that spills out of your back, I can suspend my disbelief for that a little bit.
I think my favorite part is the initial birthing scene. It's so beautifully done. It's horrific because you have a person coming out of another person's back. Then the person like, well, you know, you have, I referenced it earlier, but the scene where Margaret Qualley is just sort of looking at herself in the mirror. It's very like gorgeous. It's very sexy, but then she has to go and like sew up Demi Moore's back and and like plug in the little IV bag and everything. And so it sort of encapsulates everything that is beautiful and terrible about this movie. So yeah, I have to go with that.
One thing we didn't talk about with the body horror is how disgusting the wound in her back gets. The wound.
Every time she like
out of it.
Oh, the pus. Oh God.
I don't do pus. I looked away a couple times from that. I don't do pus.
Yeah, if you don't like needles, this is not the movie for you. There's so much needle action in this. Yeah.
So many needles. All right. Least favorite part. I don't think I have one. I really enjoyed this movie. Like, I'm not going to say it's like the greatest movie I've ever seen or anything, but there was not a moment of this movie where I wasn't completely engaged, whether I was laughing at the absurdity of it or marveling at the sort of formalistic beauty of it, or just being like a horny person being like, hey, it's Margaret Qualley and she's naked. Although I do think her boobs in this movie are either prosthetic or CGI. and I couldn't tell which.
Yeah, I don't know.
She is not that stacked as a person, but they had to make her match Demi more. And
right.
I don't want to be like prurient about it, but you know, it was something I noticed. It was weird. Well, that gets us into rating. So on this show, we do a 2-pronged scale, filmmaking and theme, and we do each on a 5-star scale. And then we add it all up and average it out. So, okay. So, Emma, what is your rating on the filmmaking scale?
Well, I in my personal ratings, I gave the film a 9 out of 10. So I suppose we could round that up to a 5.
And what is your theme rating?
Definitely a 5. I think it really says, it's not subtle, but it doesn't have to be. I think it really says exactly what it wants to. The whole movie felt like Fargiat, or however you pronounce it, was in complete control of what she was saying and the film she was making. It's very much an auteur piece, and I really loved that about it. So I would definitely go 5 for the way it conveys those themes.
Okay, so Emma gives it a collective 10. Eric, what would you give it on filmmaking?
Filmmaking, I'd say 5. Technically amazing, like all the practical effects or digital effects, I couldn't even tell what was what at certain points. So, and just beautifully shot. The score is amazing. We didn't even talk about the score, which is a French. I think he just makes electronic music in France, but it's great. Yeah, I would say 5 for filmmaking, for sure.
Okay, so for theme,
I probably won't go as high because it is a lot of it, especially early on. A lot of it is very surface level, but it's well done and it's to its point, and it never skims on it. But I would say probably a 4. Jackson, what is your filmmaking score?
My filmmaking score, it's got to be a 5. I mean, this movie is beautifully put together, and like we said, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes and just flies by. Like that alone, like how many movies can say that? You know, only the works of the masters, you know,
super well paced,
can make a sort of long movie feel short. And I was engaged 100% of the time. I never was like, oh, when's this movie? Well, a little bit at the end, I was like, when is this going to end? Just because it felt like it couldn't go anywhere else. But then it kept going somewhere else. So, theme, I'm going to dock it a little bit because I don't feel like it is a surface level movie. And maybe that's by design because it's about surface level things. So, you know what? Never mind. That fits in with the theme. I'm going to give it a. So I also give it a collective 9.
That means that we give this movie a 9.33333333, which we will round into a solid 9.
So I'm going to ask one final question. What is a body horror film that you would recommend to our listeners? Emma, go ahead.
I hate to repeat myself because I was just talking about it, but I really think people who liked this film would enjoy Titan if they haven't seen it yet. Definitely some similar things going on there. I would, like, if I ran the IMDb, you may also be interested in feature, I would suggest Titan to Substance fans.
I mean, any of the Cronenbergs, I think, is probably a good companion piece to this, at least body horror wise. And I think just the relationship between them, basically, it's almost a two-hander. This movie is. I think The Fly would pair well with it if you're looking at that, because it is, Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis, and they are just the two people who are the leads of the movie, and it's just Margaret Qualley and Demi Moore for this one for the most part, with like a side character. So I think those two would pair really well together.
I'm going to go with a movie we've discussed on this channel before. Eric, you weren't on that episode, but I'm going to go with Ginger Snaps. Which is a werewolf movie, but it's really kind of a body horror movie about like, girls going through late puberty and, one of them turns into a lycanthrope. And it's got a lot of really cool, gross stuff. And I feel like it's a movie not enough people have seen. So
I love Ginger Snaps. It's
Back
great.
in the day when IFC showed uncut movies and they would have like
Mhm.
grindhouse horror movies at night, I saw that when I was in high school. That's a good one.
Mm.
that's a good age to see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a horny movie too when it's not.
It's
Oh, yeah.
really super horny. Yeah.
hmm
So is this movie. So it pairs well.
Very hot. All of these movies are very hot. You should go check them all out, along with Reagan.
Yes.
Trifecta.
Reagan's
Go see the Reagan movie.
Mm.
The greatest horror of all.
The greatest horror of all. But when you go buy your
The
ticket,
Reagan era.
just say the substance in its place, and they'll give you the right.
Yeah. Go buy a ticket for the substance, but then go see Reagan.
buy a ticket for the substance. The box office will actually trickle down to Reagan.
Oh, God.
Mm.
You can find this show on Facebook or the artist formerly known as Twitter.
X. Yeah.
X. Oh, God.
Yeah.
You're going to talk about Reagan.
Mhm.
Or you can find the show on Spotify and YouTube, which is probably
Mhm.
what you're listening to it on, unless you found it on Spotify.
Mhm.
But don't forget, if you like this episode, slash that like button and leave us a killer comment and give us a King Kong size thumbs up. So as always, from Horror Sci-Fi and Beyond, stay weird.